fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alfstead, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.
Hey, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alfstead, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to do a fun show for you, our mock draft 3.0 post-combine mock draft. Welcome in.
Yeah, I love these shows. These are always fun. They're always they're just fun to prep for, fun to do, fun to talk about. I went out of my way this time to try and draft different players than in the last two. Rather than having seen the same guys and the same names over and over again.
I did mostly the same.
Was a little challenging to do so because there's some guys I really like, and when they're sitting there when I'm gonna pick, and I'm like, nope, can't take them because I took them last time. That makes these drafts a little harder, but I think it'll make for a fun show. So, yeah, let's just jump right into it. So I know that I traded down from 5. I
traded down from 5 also.
Yep, I traded down to 8, and you traded down to 9, if I'm remembering right.
So what was your philosophy here? What was available to you? Do you remember? I still have my draft open, so I can
look at it too. Really, I mean, there was Will Anderson Jr. was there. I could have taken him there. Yeah. But Same. Also there was a bunch of other guys I liked, and I'm like, okay, the quarterbacks that I wanted to take were gone. And so therefore if I would have taken them at 5, they weren't there. And so I went ahead and moved down and picked up an extra pick because I'm like, if I'm going to go defense, then I can do that at 8 and get an extra second round pick.
Yeah, my philosophy was CJ Stroud and Will Anderson were there. Jalen Carter was off the board, and Anthony Richardson was gone. Christian Gonzalez was gone. Will Levis was gone. CJ Stroud was available. Miles Murphy, Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson. I decided, there were 3 or 4 guys there that I could select from. I chose a partner to do that. It'd be really interesting for me to see what kind of premium is actually put on this trade back. If Seattle is at 5 and a team really wants to come up, say it's CJ Stroud sitting there, I would expect that Seattle may get like a 20% premium on return for a move back, like what happened to us. You traded back to 8, I traded to 9. It wouldn't surprise me if we get more compensation than maybe we're allocating in this.
Oh, I would agree, especially if a guy like CJ Stroud gets past Indy and is sitting there. Like that becomes a premium spot. Someone's going to pay a pretty penny to get up into that spot and take them. Right. And I'm okay with that.
What compensation did you get for the 8th for trading back 3 spots?
Pick 44.
Okay. And I dropped back to 9, and I received pick 39 in return.
So you got a better you dropped
Moved back one
more
spot
further, but you got more.
It's similar value. Similar.
Yep.
All right. So what'd you do?
At 8, like I said, I moved back because Richardson and CJ Stroud were there. The guy that was Bryce Young was sitting there. And so I moved back with the idea that knowing that he would be the guy someone would come up for, and Will Anderson. And so I moved back behind the Raiders, which gave Will Anderson to the Falcons, who moved up with me. The Raiders took Bryce Young, who I don't want. And that left me with Will Levis at 8 to be Seattle's long-term solution at quarterback, which I know you don't like, but I do not have the same reservations about.
Yeah, Will Anderson went to the Falcons in my draft as well at 8. At 9, players available to me were Tyree Wilson, Joey Porter Jr., Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, Paris Johnson, etc. Really not a lot of value there. The only obvious pick for me was Tyree Wilson, which I went with some reservation. I felt like I wanted to get a player like that to me a little bit later, but I wasn't going to make 2 trades at the top and piss off the entire Seahawks community out there. Just trading back alone from 5 is going to, rub half the population wrong anyway. But the thought process is we did re-sign Geno Smith on a 3-year deal. It's a 2-year deal if you really look at the details. That gives us an opportunity here to develop a quarterback. But do we develop a quarterback with our first pick in the first round at 5 overall? I'm not sure. They could definitely do that if a guy's there that they really like, especially if it's Richardson. I think that's the type of prospect that you really take a swing on. But Stroud's definitely the safer pick. But Tyree Wilson's not a bad player. You had mentioned it in our last show when we talked about edge players in general, about how Tyree Wilson was kind of coming on a little bit in your in your world as far as a player that might be available to Seattle and would be a good player to select. 6'6", 271 pounds, extreme wingspan at 86 inches, a little slower plotting along at 4'8", 240. But at 271 pounds, that's not bad. Super athletic, defends the edge really well, defends the run. Seattle needs that. Has a great repertoire of pass rush moves currently and can only get better. So it's a good, solid pick. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Okay. So then moving down, you have the next pick because you did not trade down from 20. Am I correct?
Yeah. So I kind of doubled up on the defensive line in this pick. Went with 3-tech defensive tackle Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh. Now, a lot of folks are going to love this pick just for the upside, the athleticism, the traits that he has. But he is undersized, 6'1", 281 pounds. But you take a look at Aaron Donald, they almost look exactly the same as prospects, 6'1", 281, 280, 4'6", 740 here. He was a little faster. Also, Aaron Donald had 32-inch arms. Cansey has 30 and 5/8-inch arms. So it's not long, but he makes it up with leverage and quickness and agility underneath. It's a good pick, a good solid pick. I think at 20, it's a little earlier than I wanted to take that kind of a prospect again, but I was happy with the pick.
Yeah, so I traded down from 20 again. So this is Seattle's the second time Seattle's been on the clock with their pick and traded down. And this pick I got pick 25, but I also picked up pick 89 in the draft. So I got ended up moving down twice, one from 5 to 8, one from 20 to 25. And in that process, I got an extra second round pick and an extra third, which gave the Seahawks 7 picks in the top 90.
That's
which
crazy.
is like has a lot of talent. And at the 25th pick overall, I picked up Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh. Same guy you just did for a lot of the same reasons. He's undersized if you're looking at him as a defensive tackle, but you're looking at him as a 3-4 defensive end. Compare his size, weight, numbers to Shelby Harris, and you're going to see that he's a guy that can play that position. And that's the way I see him. I see him as a 3-4 defensive end in the Shelby Harris mold and at the 5-tech, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so Poona Ford, Shelby Harris is under contract, but it's elevated with low dead cap weight on it, so we could cut him or recalculate his deal. Do you bring Poona Ford back and have Cansey on one side, Poona Ford on the other with a nose tackle?
It depends on who your nose tackle is, and it depends on the cost to get Poona Ford back. I don't have a problem with bringing Poona Ford back. I would rather have him back than Quentin Jefferson, simply because I think he's a better player.
I know Pete Carroll feels like Puna's a nose, and he's just so undersized. I just don't know if he's just the right fit in our
fine
scheme.
nose when they played a 4-3.
Yeah.
But when they moved to the 3-4, he was too undersized. That you need a guy that's like 335 at the nose and in a 3-4. And
I
that's
agree.
not Puna. That's not what
agree.
Puna Ford is. So they moved him over to the 3 tech this last year, and he didn't do as well. But I still think that, you know, he did better than some of the other guys on the roster. The defensive line was overall a weakness. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think
like
if he's
any of them
surrounded
did
with
well.
better players overall, he's a better player.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went with Cansey. That's good. I think Seattle would fall in love with that pick, this player. I mean, he's just a tenacious guy, high motor, never ends, never stops. He'd be a great fit. Okay, so I stayed at 37. You've got 37 as well.
Yep.
Okay, so with my 37th pick, I went and I stayed on the defensive line now. So I went triple down on the defensive line because we needed to fix this thing. We were horrible against the run. We couldn't stop anything. We couldn't, we were at times ineffective getting to the passer, or at least disrupting timing and all that stuff. I chose the heartbeat of the defense with this pick because in a 3-4, your nose tackle is one of the most important positions. And I got Mozzie Smith at 37. I was tickled because he's the perfect fit for this defense.
That is a great pick. Super athletic, 335-pound nose tackle. He's a guy I wanted. I was kind of targeting in this draft, but I didn't know if 37 was the right spot for him. I was kind of hoping that he'd hang around to 44, which was my next pick. He didn't. He went 42. So I risked it and failed. But at 37, I went with Keon White, edge player to Georgia Tech. And I know I said that I was trying to go with guys that I hadn't, that aren't the same, where I'm not picking the same guys. And I picked Keon White before, but I do think he is a great fit as a pass rushing outside linebacker for Seattle, a guy that could come up, rush the passer, do good stuff coming around the edge, and really put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And after, getting a down lineman in the with the last pick, getting that outside guy, that edge guy that can get around the edge was important. And so getting Keon White really fixed a big need for me.
Five, 6'5", extreme length. He's quick enough at 4'6'9". Just classic high upside, high floor, athletic freak kind of a player. You and I both kind of had the same thinking in this draft. I think we were definitely going to fix the defense. So my pick at 39, this is the pick I received in trading back from 5 to 9, picked up 39, and I picked John Michael Schmitz, the offensive center out of Minnesota. It's a great fit as far as his ability. He's a good scheme fit. He's the best center in the draft, and solved that interior offensive line problem as well. So I'm sticking to the trenches so far.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I freaking love it because it fits Seattle's need. It's the best center in the draft, guy that looks dominant on tape, even playing at Minnesota against bigger, more talented teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. He went in and looked good and looked really good in those games. So I love that pick, and I matched it with pick 44, which was what I got for trading down from 5 to 8. I picked up pick 44, and I grabbed the same guy, John Michael Schmidt, out of Minnesota.
Wow, interesting. Now, Weipler out of Ohio State is another player I would consider a little later in this draft, but similar in fit wise. So if we don't end up having Schmitz available to us, and who knows what's going to happen in this draft, he could end up going in the back of the first round. There's a couple other players that are available at center a little later on. Okay, so native pick time, 52. What do you got?
I doubled up on the interior offensive line. and went with Cody Mock.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Out of North Dakota State, a guy that played tackle in college because he was at North Dakota State. Will move inside in the NFL, but man, the guy's got he's got quick feet. He's got that attitude, that like guy that's just going to run people over, drive people into the ground. Looks like he's going to be either a guard or center. In the NFL, and it looks like he's going to be a really good one. And honestly, even though I just took Schmidt, I couldn't stop myself from taking another one and solving the right guard problem. And so now you've got your center, your right guard. You picked up both of your starting tackles last year. It's a really young offensive line, but damn, is it good.
Yeah. Wow. Nice. Okay. So I've taken 3 defensive players and 1 offensive player. I go back to the defense on pick number 52. I had a choice. I had a real difficult choice here. I had my eye on Hendon Hooker as a quarterback that I would consider as bringing in a developmental quarterback. It'd be the perfect scenario for Seattle. And he was there. And in many mocks that I've done, I've been able to also have him there at 83. And so I took a chance and I went with Jack Campbell, middle linebacker out of Iowa at 52 overall. I just thought it was a better value, better need, immediate need for Seattle right out of the gate. And I was intent on going into this draft to fix the defense, and I'm really happy with this pick.
Yeah, I like that pick. So the next pick is 83, which that's a native pick if I remember right.
Yes, correct.
And I got down here at 83 and was looking defense again all the way, because I've actually drafted 3 of my first 5 on offense: quarterback, 2 interior linemen. Granted, I do have the defensive tackle and the outside linebacker with those other 2 picks, but I went interior linebacker with Oregon's Noah Sewell.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
A highly athletic guy, tackling machine as an interior linebacker. He would come in and start right next to Jordan Brooks if Brooks was healthy. Instead, he's going to probably start next to Cody Barton until Brooks is healthy. And then Brooks will slide in. But pairing him with Brooks is going to be what's going to help make that interior linebacking area a strength for Seattle.
Wow. You and I are on the same page on this thing, aren't we? Okay. So at 83, Hendon Hooker went shortly after I made that 52nd overall pick. He went like 58. And a whole bunch of other players I really liked came off the board. I really like Byron Young out of Tennessee. I'm hopeful that he's around. Jalen Jones had a not quite as good performance at the 40 at the combine at a cornerback position. I was interested in seeing what he would do. My best value pick was another great tester at the combine and had a great season at the safety position, Sidney Brown, the safety out of Illinois. He's like 6 foot, 211 pounds, big hitter, is scheme diverse, kind of a hybrid guy, can play closer to the line of scrimmage and kind of a strong safety role, can play a little bit in the slot, but can also go to the free safety spot. Had an excellent 40 got 4.39. So he's got the speed, he's got the straight line speed to be a guy that can cover over the top.
Yeah. I looked at him and was at one point and thought about that, but I honestly, as much as Seattle needs to get a safety in this draft, because it's just one of those positions that's kind of in flux at the moment. You got 2 guys that are taking up far too much cap room, and I think are going to disappear sooner rather than later. I couldn't find one that I really liked in this draft. This is not a good safety class.
It's not a safety class that is really good. Yeah. Sidney Brown is one of the few. He was the most athletic as far as next gen stats from Amazon. He was the highest athletic score at the combine for defensive backs at 89 overall. So he's just a physical, very athletic guy. Had a great vertical at 40 and a half inches, and on a 1-5-1 split. I think he can play free safety for Seattle.
Yeah. So the two guys you mentioned that you wanted, but they disappeared. Hendon Hooker went 90.
In your
So he would,
draft.
in my
Yeah.
draft, he would have been
Yeah.
available to you. And Byron Young went 85. He also would have been available to you. So
Interesting.
it's not a bad thing for you to be looking at those guys in this position, but it just didn't work out. In
Right.
the end, I still think you got a decent player there. I went with Sewell there. The At 89, though, this is the pick that I got for trading down from 20 to 25.
That's a
I went.
great spot, by the way. These picks under 100 in this draft are like
Mhm.
coveted because there's a lot of good players.
And I went wide receiver, which I did not expect going in that I was going to
Mm-hmm.
take a wide receiver with any of these top, day one, day two picks. But A.T. Perry, wide
Mm-hmm.
receiver out of Wake Forest, 6'3" and a half, 198 pounds, around a 4.47. So not elite speed, but still really good speed. Good jump, good jumping, highly athletic guy. Um, he's got that length. He can run, so which is going to make him a deep threat on the outside. He's a guy that um, gives you someone who can play opposite DK Metcalf. You can move Lockett more inside, which I think as he gets older will be a better fit for him. Um, Corner, he runs routes much better than you'd expect for a guy that's that tall. Quick and in his ability to change direction. Um, not the best at this point in his development at beating press coverage. So I think that's one of the things that's going to push him down a little bit. But overall, is a guy that um, I think can be a very productive NFL receiver.
Nice, A.T. Perry. Nice. I like that. So this is kind of the separation in the draft for me. We picked at 83. All the picks so far have been, fairly close together. Anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 picks apart. And now the jump from 83 to 123. So we're missing out on, quite a few different prospects here. And so at this point in the draft, I'm just looking to add value, add a diversity of skill sets, add players that could make the roster, could do special teams, maybe have a special role. I lucked out with this guy. A lot of mocks that I'm doing, he's gone by this point. Rashawn Johnson, the running back out of Texas, was sitting there at 123, and you knew it, right? If
No,
if he's there in this draft, I'm taking him.
not only did I know it, I also took Rashawn Johnson at 123,
Wow.
running back out of Texas.
Yeah.
Elite athleticism, a lot of mileage left on the tires because he was the second option at running back in Texas
Yeah.
because the other guy is a top 20 pick, a rare first round running back, and so he had to split time with that. He didn't get as many carries, but athletically he looks good.
Mm-hmm. 6
Power,
foot,
speed,
219 pounds. Yeah.
does a lot of things really well. And I think he'd be a great counterpunch to what Ken
Yes.
Walker Jr. does. And so I
Yes.
took exactly the same player as you at
Yeah.
exactly the same spot, which
Yeah.
I find freaking hilarious. So
That is funny. So he's just a model of consistency. His running style is determined. He breaks a lot of tackles. He's had one career fumble. He doesn't have a ton of carries, but one fumble out of that. So very dependable. He's a good blocker in the pass game. So it's a good pick at this point in the draft. It's the best value on the board.
mhm.
All right.
So now you moved all the way down to 153.
Yes.
So we've dropped from 83 to 153 here very, very quickly.
Right.
And we've also got to a point where now we're looking in guys, you're hoping for upside. You're not getting guys that are day one starters, most likely. Um, and I went back to where we started. And that would be the defensive line, and went with Keandre Coburn out of
Hmm.
Texas. Big guy, 335-pound nose tackle.
Nice.
Um, just a guy that athletic for a 335-pound nose tackle. Offers you very little in terms of rushing the passer. It's not who he is, but man, you are not moving him against the run. He is
And
going
that's the
to
point.
overpower centers and guards trying to push him. And if you're in a zone, if you're running a zone scheme where you're asking him to, you're saying, hey, these big guys can't move laterally. Well, you're going to run into problems because Coburn can move laterally. He's got a weird amount of agility for a guy that size. Even though he doesn't have the speed and explosiveness to come forward, he can move laterally as well as anyone, at defensive tackle. And you're going to struggle moving him. And this is a guy pure run stuffer up the middle, 2 down nose tackle. And you're getting that at 153. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the if you're not going to get Mozzie Smith and stuff, this is where you're going to get these type of guys in the draft. And so that's a great spot. The other thing to watch for when the actual draft happens is we pick at 153 and 156. Seattle may use one of these to drop out. What I mean by that is take a future 6th round pick or something to drop to trade out of this pick, or a future 4th, like a 2024 4th round pick. They also may elect to take a later 5th round pick and maybe a 7th round pick that's in the 230 240 range. Now we've got a pick that's 238 in this draft as well. A lot of the mock drafts that you're going to be doing right now don't indicate that we've got that pick. Just keep that in mind. We do have 738 or 739. Okay, so with this pick, 153, I went with best player available and special teams kind of pick. I went back to the wide receiver that is Ole Miss, and where DK Metcalf came from. Jonathan Mingo is the best value pick on the board here. I think he's underrated, 6'1" and 3/8, 226 pounds, shorter arms at 32 inches. But he kind of there's a mass about him. Like he's a big, stocky, like sturdy wide receiver that's going to win contested balls for you. He's a good route runner, slot type receiver as well. Can win on the outside with his speed. He's just kind of a instant acceleration, twitched up kind of an athlete at that size, believe it or not. And he just needs some refinement. He's good at tracking and catching the ball. He's got good hands, but he doesn't have a lot of experience. He comes from Ole Miss. They don't run a lot of routes for those wide receivers there. And so same sort of deal with DK Metcalf. I figured I'd give it a shot again.
Yeah, no, that's track record with Seahawks and Ole Miss receivers is pretty good. I also at one, well, the next pick, 156, I went wide receiver, which for me is my second wide receiver. But I went with Ronnie Bell, wide receiver out of Michigan, a guy that he's 6 foot, 191, 4.5, 440. Again, not elite speed, but great 3-cone under 5 seconds, and is a guy that you watch his tape from this year and you're like, you can see why he's not going early. Go back and watch it from 2021 before his ACL injury, and you see a guy who was probably going to be a late round 1, maybe early round 2 pick. And then he just doesn't look fully back in 2022. He kind of rushed back to be ready to help his team out. I think given another offseason and a chance, him to continue to rehab and work, he'll be back to what he was, pre-injury in 2021, which gives you a chance at a guy that has, could be a starter caliber receiver in this league, and you're getting him down at 156. To me, it's worth the risk.
Nice. Excellent. My 156 pick was Nick Herbig, the linebacker out of Wisconsin.
Yep.
He's 6'2", 240 pounds, 31.25-inch arms, which is the rub on him. He doesn't have the length that you're looking for on the outside. Wisconsin played him as more of an edge guy outside linebacker off the
He'll
ball,
be an
but also
interior linebacker at the NFL, in my opinion.
exactly, yes. There's a lot of talk and speculation that he's a guy that in a 3-4 scheme he would play middle linebacker, and I think that's a great fit for him. He ran a 4.65 40. It's not terribly fast, but he's got the agility. He's got the size at 240 to kind of work through blocks. He's a good tackler. He needs to work on some playing strength and all that kind of stuff. That's why he's a 5th round kind of a guy, but comes from a good program, good special teams pick at this point, and hopefully he can develop.
Yeah, I mean, this is a draft and develop kind of guy, but a guy that has the potential. I mean, athletically, to me, he looks like an interior linebacker. I think you could bring him in and have him push Cody Barton right away.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Cody Barton's
Um,
going to be, Cody Barton is undersold as athletic. Cody Barton's going to be a little bit more athletic than Nick Herbig would be, and a
yeah,
little longer,
but
but
Herberg's a better tackler.
yes,
So,
absolutely. And takes better angles, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
So the next pick isn't for a while. We got like 40 some picks before Seattle picks again, all the way down at 198, which if you are looking at, these mock drafts that don't have Seattle's 7th round pick reinstalled yet, this is the last pick.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I got my quarterback to develop in this pick. Dorian Thompson Robinson out of UCLA, 6'2", 203 pounds, ran a 4.56 40, super athletic, 1.51 split. So he's got the ability to, work around the pocket a little bit, escapability, mobility. He's got a decent arm. If you watched him at the combine, he made all the throws. He looked like one of the better quarterbacks out there, working on all the throwing drills, the agility drills, all that kind of stuff. He's probably a career backup, but you never know. Brock Purdy came in as a career backup and led his team to the NFC Championship game. So you just never know how that is going to go. And you take a shot on a guy like that in a late round, you just take a flyer. And that's what this is.
Yeah, and he's only 47 years old at the time he's drafted, because he
Fifth
played
year senior, right?
because he played in actually I think he was 6th-year senior because of the COVID thing. He was in UCLA. I swear he was a UCLA player back when I was in middle school. No,
The good thing about
no,
Dorian is he improved every year. He got better,
he
and
absolutely did.
2022 was his best year.
And I make jokes because he did have a long college career, but the truth is he's not that old. He's younger than the guy from BYU that is going to be drafted 100 spots ahead of him,
Jaron Hall,
and
yeah.
he was not nowhere near as athletic. I like DTR. If he was a little younger, I think he would go much higher in the draft because, as you're right, he has improved every single year. But when he was his first year starting at UCLA, he looked bad, like just genuinely not like a good player, and he just continued to get better over the years. And this last year, he was a big reason for UCLA's success.
Under Chip
And so,
Kelly. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's um that's an underrated selection. Um,
What'd you do? And let me
I
ask you this: did you also add a 7th round pick into this thing?
I have one picked out that, since it didn't show up, I'm like,
Right.
okay, we'll call it, but it's kind of cheating.
Right.
um,
I cheated. I added one.
and so I went with Thomas Incoon, an edge player out of Central Michigan, a guy who's
Yeah.
262 pounds, but got long arms. 4.66 is not fast for an outside linebacker, but he's a guy that at 266 can split time between outside linebacker against the run and defensive end in obvious passing situations. And just has a lot of upside and that's what he is. I mean, a guy that needs coaching to develop his pass rush moves and that kind of stuff, but he's got athleticism outside of, the 40-yard dash. Like his 10-yard split at 1.65 is pretty good. Vertical jump of 30 and a half is good. Just overall athletic guy with a lot of strength and power in his game, and has the ability to develop into a significantly better player given better coaching.
So my ad player, I went with so we have a pick at 239. It's not on the mocks, but we have that pick. It's Houston's pick currently. If you look on the mocks at 239, the John Reed trade that we made never went through essentially, and we didn't have to give up the compensation because he never made the roster. And so we've got that, and it's an interesting place to be in the draft. There's a whole bunch of players there, and most people haven't even looked because we just haven't had that pick. But I went with a player with tremendous upside that just showed up at the combine. He's not going to go in this area. I think he's going to be a huge riser, if there is such a thing, at least in the mocks. NFL teams probably know about him. Yaya Diaby, the edge rusher out of Louisville, 6'3", 263 pounds, ran a 4.51 40, a 1.56 split,
Mm-hmm.
33 and 7/8 inch arms with a 81 and a quarter inch wingspan, 37-inch vertical, super athletic. He looked like one of the best edge rushers at the combine in the drills, in the agility drills, uh, doing run 40, the split, the vertical tie. And when you're picking in the seventh round, late seventh round, you're just looking for a guy that can come in, potentially make the team, special teams, work into a role, give yourself a shot at a player. And that's what this is.
Yeah. When I was looking at guys, he was a guy I considered because we talked about him in our last show as a late round edge rusher. And I don't think he's going to last that long. I agree with you on that. Um, and, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy that is interesting, just athletically, just very interesting. I looked at him. I thought about that. I've also gone defense a lot. And that would have been a triple up. Forget doubling up. That would have been a triple up
That was a quadruple for me.
Well, not just on the line, but actually as an edge rusher.
Gotcha.
It would have been my third. Plus, I've got the actual defensive lineman in there, both at 3 tech and at nose tackle. So he would have been my fifth defensive lineman if I'd gone that way.
I wouldn't hate it. We need it for sure.
So I went in a different direction, and I wanted a guy that I honestly had no idea he existed before the combine. And that would be Zach Kuntz, out of Old Dominion, a tight end.
Yeah. Nice.
6'7", 255 pounds, 4.55 40, but at a 1.57 10-yard split, which means he's got some explosiveness to him. 40-inch vertical despite his size. 3-cone that rivals most wide receivers at 6'8'7", and he's 6'7". Basically, this is a guy who's he's as tall as Cody Parkinson, but a much more fluid athlete. And will be cheaper and on.
Did you watch? I mean, did you watch him at the combine, Keith?
Not live, but I went back and rewatched after you brought him up.
I watched.
He's so smooth for a guy that tall. You shouldn't like. Cody Parkinson is a good athlete at 6'7", but he kind of runs like a gazelle, right? He's got those super long legs and whatever. It's never pretty, but it's super effective. I didn't get that feeling from Zach Kuntz. Like he just looks like a really smooth athlete, and he happens to be 6'7", 255. So,
I love that. I mean, 4.45 40. He ran a 4.12 short shuttle, which is elite. The 1.57 split is in the 88th percentile for his size. The vertical at 40 is 99th percentile, broad jump at 128 inches, 98th percentile, three cone at 687. Those are the traits that Seattle drafts when they're looking for a tight end. Like anybody with those type of elite testing results is going to be on Seattle's radar.
Oh yeah.
And with that extra pick, I mean, I don't think that he's going to stick around at that point, but he ranked number 11th on Bruce Feldman's freak list, just
He's
because he's just so
the
crazy.
he's the most athletic tight end in this draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Significantly more athletic than the guys that are going to go in rounds 1 and 2.
And he looked better. He just looked better at doing the drills and receiving the ball and making his cuts.
He could have been a wide receiver in terms of just like I said, I went back and found him running drills on on the internet, and I'm like, God, he just looks so smooth as an athlete, and you aren't supposed to look that smooth as an athlete at that size.
Fun. Yeah, it's fun, finding players like that. Now, Old Dominion, right? So he wasn't invited to the Senior Bowl. There's no East-West Shrine game, anything like that. So he went to the Combine. I don't even know how he got invited to the Combine, but he was there and he made the most of it. And so if he wasn't on anybody's radar before that, they should definitely be looking him up. He's got the traits where I don't see him lasting any longer than the 5th round. Somebody would take a flyer on him. Seattle has 2 5th round picks. That would be a perfect landing spot for a guy like this, and he doesn't have a lot of pressure. There's not a lot of pressure to make the roster. Seattle's already got 3 tight ends. Maybe he goes onto the practice squad,
I don't know.
develop, so
that kind of speed and athleticism at that size. I mean, you're looking at a guy that can be out there on kick coverage, punt coverage, kick return, punt return, setting up and just being a special teams mainstay with the knowledge that he's going to be a guy that's going to come in and play. The thing that was interesting, I can't find Old Dominion tape, so I can't say with any firsthand knowledge of watching him play, but the stuff that I've read says the guy's a willing blocker who just works hard. He may not have the greatest form because he coached at a someone at Old Dominion, but is more than willing to put his body in there and do the things. And with some good coaching and that kind of attitude, like I could see him turning into just a really nice player at that position.
So grade wise on the drafts, I think we both came out of this thing pretty well. The interesting thing for me is trading back is definitely one of those things that John Schneider has done in the past. Didn't do a lot of the last couple years. We had 3 picks in the prior draft. Last year we had all the ammunition we needed. This year there's so much value with that 5th pick and the 20th pick. I'm just not sure that he can be disciplined enough to stay there and pick at that spot. The other thing that you've mentioned prior is the value of these picks overall. There's a lot of draft picks already at 10 or 11 with that 7th round pick. How do they work that? I mean, do you go in, and it's hard because there's good players available. You can help your team this year, but does Seattle try to start stockpiling 2024 picks?
They might, especially if they are in a situation where they do want to trade down. It might be where sure you trade down from 20 to 25. I got a 3rd round pick out of that. Maybe they choose to take a 5th round pick instead and a 3rd round pick next year. Because you're not going to get 13 rookies onto Seattle's roster. And so, they're at 11 picks now. I ended up with moving down twice, picking up 2 more, having 13 with the idea that Thomas Incoom, maybe Ronnie Bell, definitely Zach Kuntz. These are guys that you can probably get onto the practice squad. But overall, there's just some of these guys are going to be in a fight to make it.
Yes.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that because I want any kind of that kind of competition brings out it either brings out the best in the player, or they fall off and that they're not worth keeping around. So having that competition is great. And but you don't want to overdo that, because now you're spending a lot of resources on guys that aren't on your team, and those resources are valuable. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Fun. I think we've got another couple of mocks before the draft in our schedule. But our next show is going to be focusing on middle linebacker position in a 3-4 defense. Definitely a position of needs. We're going to go through all those players as we talk about prospects, and continue on with safeties and corners as well. So I think we'll skip the kickers and the punters, and the long snappers this year, as we do almost every year. So anyway, thanks for the mock. It was fun. I enjoyed yours. Hopefully we've talked about some players that some folks weren't familiar with and can start to look up, and that's a fun process as well. So find Keith on Twitter. You can find him at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. You know where the show's at. When you find it, hit the subscribe button and share it. Until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.